Good afternoon. Happy Sunday. It's Sunday here today. I don't know when we're going to post this, but this is very near Hoos, and this is Luma Fowler.
Hi.
Behind you is Upper Newport Bay in Newport Beach, and the bridge that we have right here is that way is the Jamboree Bridge, and the Jamboree Bridge is home to a pretty large colony of Mexican free-tailed bats. So today, the exercise here today is we're going to go through the kind of the survey methods. Luma is a bat biologist and ecologist. She studied in Brazil, Australia, California. She's been all over the map. So myself, I have a lot of projects that deal with bats, and bat colonies in the state of California are protected by law under the Fish and Game Code. So what we're going to do, so a lot of biologists have to actually manage for bats when you're widening a bridge or knocking it down. And the bats have adapted over the last century to roost in this areas, in the little cracks and joints that they use when the concrete expands. So in those hinges that they call them, the concrete holds heat for a while. And it holds them, and then it allows to keep the colonies warm. So if that phone is picking up any chirps, that's actually the bat starting to talk. So you always start one of these surveys before sunset, so you know where the heck is what's going on. You inspect for trolls or anybody under there that might be of danger or disrupting things, and then you kind of identify the habitat area. So Luma, we can go and just kind of show sign if we were going to do an assessment of the area?
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to show you guys a little bit here today. And I hope you get a chance to also come here. So what we're going to do today is to show you how we would do a day survey and also a night survey. But you should come here. If you're living in Orange County, this is a great opportunity to see bats. You don't need any equipment. Just bring your phone that has a good flashlight and you'll be able to see the bats. You definitely can hear them at any time of the day, but the best time to come is at sunset, so you can sit here a little bit and watch them emerging. So hopefully we'll get a nice, I don't know if we'll be able to see on the video, but hopefully you will. But I would highly advise you to come here today. So we will start by doing this day survey. So if you're coming here, if you're either working or just coming as a student to learn about the bats, we are going to, the same thing as we would do with any other wildlife, we are going to start looking for clues. So we will look for any evidence that the bats live here. Just pretending that we don't know the bats are here. We do know this bridge is very famous, and which, by the way, this is part of the 11-mile loop of the Back Bay, which is a very pretty loop that you can learn a lot about all kinds of wildlife you will watch when you're walking. But this is not, you need to come underneath the bridge, and we'll send you a map after. But, okay, so walking under the bridge, we're here, and we are looking for evidence that the bats are here. So two places we'll look. Okay, we know that the bats are going to be in between the hinges. But everything we look for on top, so any bat urine on top. But we also look for any guano, so anything that they would be dropping on the ground. But here we can already hear them, and we have a very powerful flashlight, but you don't need to buy anything in order to come here to see them, because you would only with your phone. And also we don't want to be disturbing them too much, because they are getting ready to emerge, to exit from their day roost, to go to catch some insects and eat some dinner. So we can see a lot of bat urine in here. You see there's this very strong white stain. That is all evidence that they can find. So we are also going to use our flashlight. If you're doing a survey during the day or during the night, since we are under the bridge, we are going to use the flashlight to look for guano. but we're going to use the flashlight now to show you the bat. So if you want to come underneath here, you're just going to see those pretty little faces over there. And if you follow the light, you see them moving. And look how many, those are all Mexican freetail. Last time we also saw big browns. Oh, see, they're all over the place just watching us. So all the way over there, they go all over. And we are here about the middle of the bridge. So when you come here for a visit, you will look for this bat urine. And if you will look down, it's a little dark here, but we may find one as well. Let's see the other side. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, that's all right
Yeah.
there. This is
These
rock.
are rocks.
Oh, it's the shadow. And so Luma had mentioned like different species, like the big brown bat, the Mexican freetail bat. You also have the Yuma myotis, or many different myotis species. Myotis is a genus. The way you detect species when you don't have it in your hand and there's no field, you're not actually capturing them, is through an instrument like this. So this is a live reader, meaning that it's recording live sound, and this is from Anabat. So this device is a professional device. This is the speaker right here, and it detects all of the different chirps. So each species in general will have a unique signature frequency, and that's how you can ID it. So this actually has an SD card, and then you can take that SD card onto your computer and run a program, and it'll spit out what species you actually have. So this is pretty critical when you're doing an actual species survey.
Okay, so here I found a little bit. It's mixed with the rock, so it's hard to see, but there is actually guano down here. So this is one of the ways that you can find, and also another way that you can identify the species when you're going to a place that you're not sure what is in there, and you want to identify the species. There is you can also defer the guano. So the species, they also will feed on different insects, and that's how you can tell the difference between them. It's when you find this is a very typical freetail bat, Mexican freetail. So here we have the equipment working. This is a live unit where we'll be able to see once the bats start emerging, once they start really calling, they will be able to see. They also do a lot of social calls. So this is, there are a lot of bat biologists that use acoustics to understand bats, and also students. So when you're studying them, you really want to understand the social calls, the repeating calls. Because of the echolocation, we're able to defer that. And I'm going to show you that during the lecture, with the different calls that they make. And when they are exiting, normally they do social calls. It's kind of, the mom saying, "I'm back," or they saying, "Hi, how are you doing?" So really just a social call. They're saying, "Okay, goodbye, I'm coming." You see that it's different. When they are feeding, their call is very intense and short. So it's like, so you will see and we see the call, you will see the format of the call is how we can tell them. So this is one way to do it. Another way is setting up the equipment to record overnight. And that's also a good way to see how the calls change overnight, because it's really hard for us to stay here all night just watching the live unit. So we normally would set up the equipment and leave it overnight, come back and pick it up and review all the calls. And if it is a big population of bats like this one, it would be like 200 calls, more than it really depends on how active they are. Since it's a little cold today and now, we're in January, almost February, but it's a little cold, but they're still active. We'll see a little bit of emerging, but not as active as they would be during the summer. So this is another one. I also brought another live unit It's just an attachment to the iPhone. It's a $100 unit, and it's very cheap. It's more for fun. It's not as professional, but with that unit you can tell the presence. So with this live unit, what we want to know if they are here, because if we have work being done at the bridge, the only thing we need to know if there are bats or if there are not bats, because in case we need to do an exclusion or anything, then you need to make a plan after, and you don't decide that in one day. You need to come here for 7 days in order to decide if there are bats or not, because especially if it's in this time of the year, they may not be active today, but they will be tomorrow or the day after. So you need to come back here, do the same thing with live units, with recorded units, and then you will be able to write a report and really tell if there are bats or not.
And this can be applied to other components of just the sampling, whether it's a live unit or a recorded unit like Luma was talking about that you can get from your phone. This could help with academic research, migration patterns, identifying new species in different locations, identifying the diversity of chatter. It can also, like Luma was saying, the behavior within the population. So it could determine whether they're chattering because of stress, or it can detect whether there are young versus adults. They have different chatters as well. So this is a bridge dwelling situation where all these lines that you see on the top of the bridge that we've shown are hinges. There's also wind farms and any impacts to bats in terms of environmental consulting or environmental planning or conservation. It's important to be able to detect them with different instruments. So there are actually ways to handle them through mist netting, and you can actually extract them and take morphometrics, measuring them just like I showed at the pond turtles, and getting that data. But a lot of this stuff, this passive surveying is a lot less. We don't need to know the weight of all of them. That's not our question. But in academics, there's still something you can do. So there's a lot of different ways to sample bats, and different species actually utilize different areas. So we are under a bridge. Some are in trees, some are in the bark of trees, some are in caves, some are in holes in the ground. There's a diversity of areas. So 25% of all mammals in the world are actually bat species in terms of species diversity. So they fill all sorts of niches within ecosystems. And in the urban space, they're in bridges, that's where society and consulting and resource management happens a lot, is within these areas. So
another thing to add is, so they roost during the day and during the night in different places. So we know that they are day roosting here, but during the night, once they exit here, they will eat some insects. They will probably. So okay, when we are doing the day assessment, we need to look everywhere. We know that the bridge has bats. We find evidence, but we didn't find any bats. Let's say that this bridge didn't have any bats, but I see everything. I see the urine, the guano. Where are they? So you look around and you try to find habitats that it could be. As Barry mentioned, they can be in a lot of places, and they could be using the bridge as a day or night roost. So in this case, we know that the bats are here during the day, but during the night, they would go somewhere else. Where do we find insects? So since here we're in an estuary, we have a mixed water here, salt and fresh water. But on this other side, we have mostly fresh water where you would find a higher population of insects. So that's where probably, saying we're investigating, the insects are going to be heading to. And there aren't enough studies to prove how far they would go during the night. But they could go to the UCR marsh to eat and come back here after. So, and they do more than one exit. They could go out, eat, come back, then go out again and come back. Since the bats are here very small and unpredictable and hard to see at night, it's really hard to tell where they're going, how often they're coming out in and out during the night. So doing the habitat assessment during the day is where we investigate all these areas to see where they could be going. And there is also a really good patch in this creek leading to an area going around here, going towards UCI, that the bats could be going to. So, well, when we see them exiting too, we'll be able to see which direction they are going.
And building upon which direction they're going, that's also visually. And then Luma brought these counters here so that we can estimate how many bats are actually emerging. So this is called a bat emergence. How many are actually emerging from the bridge? And so the way we do that, this is a very large span. So if this were like a true count, we would need surveyors all the way across with all these different counters on either end of each one of these bridges. And what we're counting is how many bats cross our eyes going out and going in. So you have two counters and you go, that one went out, this one came back in. That one went out, that one out, that one out. What you do is you subtract the amount of number, the bats going out, you subtract the number that came back in, and that's your sum of how many emerge from this section. And then each surveyor does that same thing, and then you get a summation of how many bats actually emerge that night. And that's a rough estimate of the colony. So like Luma said, at this time of year, in the winter, it would be inaccurate to actually measure the colony as a whole. But what you can do is measure the activity level. How many are active right now during the winter? I mean, this is January, the coldest months of the year. So, and there's still this mammal that hibernates if it's too cold. So this is literally like the warmest spot you could be in coastal Southern California to have these, and these bats are still active. So this is a good spot, especially in the winter quarter, to survey for bats.
All right. So in a night survey, we would just keep doing this for a couple hours. Ideally, you would stay, starting at sunset for 2 hours, and keep recording, counting the emergence of the bats, and also checking the live unit. And then after, we'll get this data, pass it to the computer, and we can analyze that and see what bats were here, because you're not going to be looking at this all the time if you're actually counting the bats. You can just turn it on, record it, put it in your pocket, and be doing, because when you're counting the bats, your eyes are on it. You're not looking at your phone, you're not talking to your friends. We would position people in all sides of the bridge, looking in different directions. One person looking out this way, another the other way, so we can get all directions of the bridge, make sure that we have a good count. And pretty much that's it for the night.
Yeah, so thanks Loma for showing us
Thank you.
the world of bats and how we sample for them. And we'll also have a lecture on how this data is interpreted and all the other different aspects of managing, conserving, and researching this taxa. So thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.